Well, so some of the politics playing out over the last few days. The EFF leader, Julius Malema, saying his party will govern South Africa next year. He also sang the song Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer at the party's big 10th birthday rally over the weekend. Then the ANC Veterans League holding its conference. Its leader, Snuki Sikalala, saying the ANC must pull out of coalitions with the EFF because it's damaging to the ANC to work with the EFF. At the same time, persistent speculation, Malema may want to actually return to the ANC. He was expelled in 2012. Over the weekend, though, he again insulted the ANC and some of its leaders by name, calling Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi a little boy with a snotty nose. Dr TK Pooe is a political analyst and public policy specialist at the Wits School of Governance. Dr. Pooe, good afternoon to you. There are so many dynamics at play at the moment. And I suppose one of the dominant political questions is whether the ANC and the EFF will or could work together in national government. How do you assess their relationship right now?
No, thanks for having me. Look, I think one finds it fascinating in the sense that there is a particular, let's say, certain individuals, if not provinces, that are amicable to working with the EFF. We've seen this a lot in Gauteng. However, I think what really seems to be the dominant view, especially from national ANC, is that they don't want to work with the EFF. So I guess the key issue I would look at is what would be the percentage? I think that's the percentage loss the ANC would be willing to then consider going to the EFF. If the ANC gets 50, 51, or let's say even 49 point something, and they can get rope in a smaller party, the EFF then becomes a non-factor. But if the ANC were to go to, let's say, 45, 40, then I think all cards will be on the table. We have to remember there's nothing that shows us that the EFF won't work with the ANC and vice versa. So I think it's just an issue of how much damage the ANC might take in the next coming election. If it's a 48, 50, they might not see any reason why they need the EFF.
It's so interesting because, you're obviously correct in what you say, that it's the ANC in Gauteng that seems keen on working with Malema. That's certainly where we see the working relations. There is also Nelson Mandela Bay, I think, if I remember correctly. At the same time, Malema picks out Panyaza Lesufi specifically, the Gauteng ANC leader, and calls him a little boy with a snotty nose. I mean, what does he call his friends?
Well, look, I think we always have to be reminded where Mr. Malema comes from. If you remember the ANC Youth League he comes from, this is part and parcel of their language. One might say if it's in the play yard and if maybe one was looking to court a young lady, you use the most offensive language, which is not actually smart, but it's just to get attention, to say, listen, I can put you on the spot. But maybe, in the background, you kind of say, listen, you understand I had to say that for the public, but you and I are fine. And I think that's what we tend to see with South African politics, which is they're playing to the gallery, which is you and I. And I think what we probably need to kind of take into cognizance is it's a bit like Kaiser Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. While it's good to, have a go at each other, let's not forget the elites are sitting in the lovely VIP rooms having a good time, and it should not actually be lost on that. So I never will always try and play to the pageantry, which is us, but we should always remember when it comes to it, these people would be more than happy if it suits the political power to really work together. So we should never be fooled by that.
Some of the reaction to all of this is interesting, and the DA leader, John Steenhuisen, said today they're going to the United Nations Human Rights Council over the fact that the EFF sang the song Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer. There's been at least 2 court cases involving Julius Malema and AfriForum on this. First, when Malema was ANC Youth League leader. Second, more recently. Both times, first time Malema lost. Second time, it seems he won. So he's not doing anything illegal. What does the DA's reaction to the singing of the song tell us?
It goes back to what we were saying about, playing to the pageant. You have to remember, in the last general election, the DA was outflanked by the Freedom Front Plus in a lot of areas, your Free States, Gauteng, and also partly in the Western Cape. So when they're doing this, again, it's an issue of pageantry. They're looking to say we're not going to be outflanked here by the Freedom Front Plus. So they need to be looking to as though they're busy saying, listen, we are taking on Mr. Malema. Because in the minds of parties like the Democratic Alliance and the Freedom Front Plus, especially their voters, Mr. Malema represents something that they are quite uncomfortable with. And what Mr. Steenhuisen is simply doing is just saying, listen, we're not going to be outflanked by the Freedom Front Plus, and we need to be looked like we're taking on Mr. Malema. Because in reality, you've actually just summarized it properly. There's nothing illegal which he is doing. And if that's the case, why would Mr. Steenhuisen go outside the borders of South Africa to go get a judgment, which really would not stick in the context of South African politics? And you forget something else. This actually just, one might say, the EFF coming off a good pomp and ceremony on Saturday. This actually just puts Mr. Malema more in the news arena, and it really makes you think, do they actually have other opposition parties actually understood how you actually tackle the EFF? Because it would seem as though they love giving them free publicity.
I mean, there's some suggestions. I know some people have been very angry with the DA sort of moonshot pact idea against what they've called the ANC EFF Doomsday Pact. I mean, that's their language. Some suggest that that's Swat Ghaffar campaigning. Others would suggest that, I suppose, the DA's constituency that it's aiming for would suggest, how else do you respond to someone who sings Kill the Boer?
Well, it's very interesting that he's responding to Mr. Malema, but not the ANC. And I think that's always been what's quite interesting about the moonshot, in that in words, it sounds as though we're against the EFF, and I think that's part of, they've really kind of nailed their mask to it. But what we've not really heard from Mr. Steyn is, what about the other party you put into the relationship, the ANC? Silent on that. And that's why I find it quite fascinating that it's one thing to go after them because that's a battle between party number 2 and 3 in the country, and it's 2 and 3 by a long mile. It's actually, I think that's probably more fascinating, the difference in numbers between the DA and the EFF. But what I find more fascinating is, why does Mr. Steyn never actually go after the ANC? Because he's almost making it seem as though this relationship is being forged on the command of the EFF, forgetting that the ANC, in their minds, would consider themselves a major party and then a major partner in this, not somebody that just gets summoned by the EFF.